Hey everybody, it's Jason Collins. I want to welcome you to this episode of Papaw's Woodshop. Today we're going to be doing some pin turning, and we're going to be using some excellent spalted hickory that I got from a friend of mine. And I'm really excited about today's episode because the pin that I'm going to be turning today is really special. It's for a friend of mine who is getting married in a couple of weeks. My wife and I are actually going up to South Dakota to participate in their wedding. And this pin is a gift for her son as a Christmas present. And typically I use hardware from Craft Supplies USA. And I'm also excited because this is the first time that I'm using some of their higher end pin hardware. So I'm really excited about that. This is going to be a special episode making a really cool pin for a good friend of mine. So you guys stay tuned and I'll show you how it's done. As I said, this episode is going to be about pin turning, and I've been doing pin turning for a couple years, and here are some pins that I have turned, all using hardware that I got from Craft Supplies USA or pinturnerscatalog.com. All of these pins were turned using their apprentice line. So for people who are just getting into pin turning, they have an entire line of hardware that's designed for beginning pin turners, and the hardware is a little less expensive. They don't compromise in quality though. They have some of the very nicest pin hardware that I have found, and at some excellent prices. Now this is a pin I made for myself a couple years ago, and I made this using the Craft Supplies USA Slimline pin kit and a very nice piece of cocobolo, and it's actually darkened up so much over the years that you can't hardly see any of the figure and detail in it anymore. But it's excellent piece of wood, very nice smooth hardware. I also made another pin for myself using the Craft Supplies Apprentice rollerball kit, and this is made out of the same piece of rosewood cocobolo, and then actually in the top a piece of African blackwood. And again, their hardware, all of the stuff that I've gotten from them has just been top-notch, top quality, excellent stuff. So without further ado, what I would like to do is show you guys the pin kit that we're going to be working with today, and also the blank that we're going to be using. The pin kit that we're going to be using today is the Artisan Venus Rollerball, and it is excellent, guys. I mean, I'm going to unpack it here and show you real quickly, but this is some of the highest quality, best feeling hardware that I've ever seen. This is really top of the line stuff here. Wonderful pin clip. This is in it looks like gunmetal, but I believe in the catalog this is called black chrome. I believe it's what this is, or black titanium rather. Has a very nice crystal in the end cap, and it also has some very nice jewel work in the accent band that goes around the center of the pin. So this is for a friend of mine's son for a Christmas present, and I'm extremely excited about the opportunity to put this together and turn this pin. And we're going to be using, really quickly, we're going to be using a piece of spalted hickory that a friend of mine here in Mississippi gave me the other day. And so I'm really excited about using this. This wood has some beautiful grain pattern and figure in it, and I think that the light color of the wood contrasted with the dark hardware that we're going to be using, I think this is going to make an absolutely gorgeous pin. So let's get started. Let's cut some wood. Now we're using the pin tubes that came with the kit, and it's worth pointing out for any beginning pin turners out there, when you're doing a two-piece pin, a rollerball pin, keep in mind that these tubes are different sizes, okay? And you want to be aware of that throughout the entire process, because one of the worst things that you can do is forget which is your top and which is your body and wind up drilling with the wrong drill bit or whatever, because that can make for a very bad day. So what I've done is I've looked at the grain and the figure in this piece of wood, and I've laid out my pin. We've got a little bit of heartwood here on the end, And so I'm going to take my pin top from this section right in here, and I've made a line here, and I'm going to take the pin body from a little further down and hopefully be able to use some of this wonderful spalting that we have in the middle here. So I've taken the pencil and I've marked out where I want to make my cuts. I am cutting a little bit long on these because the drill bit that I have is not a brad point drill bit, and it tends to blow the bottom of the blanks out. So my plan is to drill into this and actually leave a little bit of space at the bottom and then take it to the bandsaw and trim that off so that I don't have to worry about blowing out the bottom. So let's go cut this blank and get started. Awesome. Now that we have these blanks cut, let's go ahead and mark them up, punch them so that we can drill them out. I actually have a pretty cool little tool here. This is called a center finder, and really the way you use it is these blanks, because we cut them out of just pieces of wood, literally from my friend's wood pile, they're not particularly square or true or anything. So I'm going to use this tool to find the center point of each one of these blanks so I know exactly where to start drilling. And basically what you do is you just go corner to corner and then rotate the blank around in each direction and make a line, and it does an excellent job of finding that exact true center of a piece of wood. It also, if you flip it over, it will work on finding the center of something that's not square, something that's round or really irregularly shaped. You can use this and actually, by making a series of lines, find the center of something that is nowhere near square. So we're going to use the side for something that's almost square, and we'll go ahead and mark. And when you make 4 marks on it, you actually get a really good indicator of where the center of the piece is. And then once you've done that, it's literally just a matter of taking your punch, finding that exact center on that piece of wood, setting your punch in there, tapping it down, making you a nice center mark there so you can get your drill bit started. There we go, all marked up, ready to drill. Now if you'll remember, as I said before, we have 2 different size tubes. We have one tube for the body of the pin, and we have one tube for the cap of the pin, and those actually need to be drilled out with different size drill bits. Right now I have the larger of the drill bits chucked up to do the cap, so we'll get the blank for the cap put in the vise, and we'll get started drilling that out. Now it's worth mentioning, I got this little vise here, and I can't remember if I bought this on eBay or if I bought it on AliExpress, but it's made out of hard maple, and it does an excellent job centering up your square stock. It's got 2 90-degree notches in here, it's got some little spacers, and you can tighten it down, and it does an excellent job holding everything together so that we can drill it out. Let's raise our platform up a bit and get this centered up. Tighten that down. Right there, and we're ready to drill. Now, as I stated before, I don't want to drill this all the way through because this is not a brad point drill bit. It gets pretty hot in there, and I don't want to blow the bottom of that blank out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tube and I'm going to insert it in here and see about how much further we need to go before we bottom out on that. So that needs to go in about a ½ inch more. There. That should be enough. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to work. All right, so let's take this over to the bandsaw, and I'm just going to chop the bottom off of it so we can go ahead and get our tubes glued up. Okay, so we went ahead and took this one over to the bandsaw, and we cut the end off. So we're ready to glue the tube up in this one. We have this one chucked up, squared away. We're going to go ahead and drill a hole through this one, and I've actually set a stop on the drill press so that we don't punch all the way through this block. There we go. So let's take this one over, chop the bottom off, and we're ready to glue up some tubes. Glue up is pretty simple and straightforward. The only thing that I want to point out is these tubes are extremely smooth and slick. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take some sandpaper and rough these up. The reason for that is because when you rough them up, and this has a scratched texture to it, the super glue has a better opportunity to bond with this and actually create a mechanical lock when you insert it into the tube for final glue up. And basically what I do is I just take like a 120 grit sanding disc and just give it a couple of twists, flip it around, and this creates some grooves. It cuts some grooves into the brass tube, and that makes glue up way easier, and the risk of your pin coming apart is greatly diminished. Those tubes are they're just a little too slippery for the glue to grab onto it very well. So now, literally, it's just a matter of taking you some super glue, or you can use Gorilla Glue. I mean, there's a lot of different methods for gluing these up. I've always just used super glue. It's just a simple matter of squirting some on there. Be generous with it. Then you take your blank and insert the tube into the blank. Twist it around, move it around a little bit. Be sure you get good glue coverage all the way down. And then what I do is just take and press them in a little bit. Pound them in there really good. There we go. And just set that aside and let it dry. Do the next one the exact same way. Generous amount of super glue on the tube. Take the blank, twist, insert, smear your glue around really well. Give it a good tap on the end. There we go. Those are glued up, ready, and as soon as they're dry, we'll trim them up, and we're almost ready to put these on the lathe. We're back to the drill press, and it's time to flush, trim, and square the end of our blanks up here. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do that. If you don't have a drill press, you can do it on a belt sander or a disc sander, or they even make a handle attachment that goes onto this device. And this device is called a pin mill or an end mill, and it has a shaft that perfectly matches the inside diameter of your tube, and then it has a cutter on top, and it's designed to square and smooth each end of your blank. And also the shaft has a cutter on it, and it's designed to clean out any glue squeeze out or debris that might be inside the tube so that it will slide perfectly onto your pin mandrel. The easiest way to do this that I've found is to take a crescent wrench and secure the blank. I slide the blank up on the mill before I start the drill press. Put a block of wood under it so that the shaft will have something to go into, just a sacrificial surface, and then square the end. So there we go. Nice shiny brass on each end. The inside of the tubes are good and cleaned out. Let's do the other blank. In order to trim and square the other blank, we have to change out the shaft on our barrel trimmer. And these kits are available from woodturnerscatalog.com. And basically all you have to do is you take the trimming head off and you simply slide it on and attach it to the pilot shaft of the correct size. Take your Allen wrench, line up the screw with the locking area, put that on there. That's good to go. Put her right back in the drill press. Tighten that down. One more bit. There we go. Now we're ready to trim the blank for the other part of our pin. Okay, now we've got both pin blanks squared and ready to be turned. So let's take these over to the lathe and get started. So guys, before we get started with this, I just want to make a point of showing you guys, this is my lathe, and this thing is an oldie but a goodie. It's a vintage Craftsman 12-inch wood lathe that a friend of mine gave me a couple years ago. And my point in showing you this is, when you start out in woodworking, you don't necessarily have to have the greatest and most expensive equipment that's out there. A lot of times Craigslist, yard sales, things like that can get you some really good functional equipment for not much money at all. So with that said, I'd like to show you guys what this old jewel will do. So at this point, I always like to stop and check just to see what kind of figure we're looking at, to look and see how the wood is responding, and this is going to be absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Again, this is going to be some really, really nice wood when we get it turned down. So we've got both of them turned down to round. I'm going to go ahead and turn these down to their finished size. So you guys stick around. Now we're getting really, really close to these being flush with the bushings. And because this is spalted wood and because you never really know when you're going to hit a soft spot in it or whatever, I like to stop about right now. I maybe could go a little bit further on this one, but I like to stop about right now and finish it out with sandpaper. And a lot of people don't like to do that because sanding, well, let's just face it, sanding is boring, right? And it takes a lot of time. But just to be on the safe side, I don't want to wreck all this work, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this out with some 150 grit sandpaper, and then we're going to step it up to 240, 320, and finally 400 grit sandpaper on this, and then we'll start applying the finish. Okay, we're within range. We're within range on our measurements on these. So we're going to go ahead now and turn the lathe speed down. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and walk up through our various grits of sandpaper, moving right now to 240 and working our way up to 400. Now that we've got this sanded down, I'm going to go ahead and coat it with a little bit of tung oil, just to bring out some of the grain and seal it up a little bit before we start applying the super glue or CA finish. This is my favorite part of turning, because this whole time we've been working with this wood, we really haven't been able to see what kind of grain and figure we're going to have. But immediately when you put the tung oil to it, it brings out so much of the character of the wood. Now this is some of the nicest wood that I've worked with in a very, very long time. This is spalted hickory, and we've got a couple of coats of tung oil on it, and I'm telling you, this is going to turn into a gorgeous, gorgeous pen when we're done. So now we're over here at the drill press in my makeshift pen press. This is always an exciting part, because once we press these together, it becomes very, very difficult to get them apart. So we have to pay very, very close attention to how we do this, to how we put these pieces together. I've kept each end, the top and the body, lined up the way that it was lined up on the lathe rather, and we're going to begin putting these pieces together. And I'm going to start with the cap. So we're going to need the end cap. We're also going to need this insert. So we'll set the body aside. Take our bushings out, set them aside. This piece simply slides in here like this, and I have created this pen press. I just have an old piece of hard maple, and then here I have taken a piece of eucalyptus wood, which is really, really hard, and I've put it in here in the drill press. Just screwed a screw into it, and then chucked that up in the drill. So we're going to go ahead and push this down. Works very easily, very simply like that. Beautiful. Now, in putting the clip on, I always like to turn the barrel until I find an area that either doesn't look quite so nice that I want to cover up, or an area that's just not very remarkable, and we can cover that up with the pen clip. Again, works the same way. Simply put that in under the press, drive that piece home. It's going to be an absolutely stunning pen. Let's get to the other part. Okay, now it's time to put the body of the pen together, and this is the end of the pen where the cap will post to or mount to when you're using the pen for writing. So be very, very sure when you're doing this to pay attention to this little ring, because this ring goes on only one way, and if you're not very careful and if you don't watch, you can very easily get that ring on upside down, and that's not good. So you just put this in same way as before, steady it a little bit there, and then just get it pressed, and then just simply drive it right home, just like that. Beautiful, beautiful pen. Excellent. This is amazing. I love this hardware. Now we get to decide how we want the pen to look when it's put together in the pocket. And typically what I do is I take the other piece, I take the cap, and I go ahead and I screw that cap onto the pen nice and tight. Then I take it and I put it onto my other blank, and I begin to turn it until I get it to the point where I think that's where I want to align it. Press it in just a little bit, hold it with your hand, back it out, take it apart. Be sure not to move that. Set it in there. Lower this just a touch. And then press this home. Then we simply reassemble the pin like so. And like so. And there we have it. An absolutely stunning, beautiful, beautiful pin. Okay, so here we are. This is the finished pin. And to say that I'm impressed with the quality of the pin hardware would be an understatement. Craft Supplies USA has outdone themselves on this particular product. Up to this point, I have been using the Apprentice pin hardware. And honestly, this has been one of my favorite pins. I made this pin about 2 years ago, and I've used it, I've abused it, I've thrown it in my briefcase, I've done everything that you could possibly imagine to do with this pin, and it has just performed. It's wonderful. Anytime I have it in my hand or my pocket, people are going, "Wow, that's a nice pin. Where did you get that?" And then when I tell them I made it, they're just blown away. But let me tell you something. For everything that this pin is that and then some. I mean, it's just amazing. The threads to take the cap off or to put the cap on are just absolutely butter smooth on both ends. It's just absolutely remarkable. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about it. I will be using these pin kits a lot in the future. And it's just, I mean, the crystals, the finish on it, everything on this pin just screams high-end heirloom quality pin. I mean, I'm sure my friend's son is going to be blown away to get this. I know I had a ton of fun making it. I'm still going to make these because the retail price point that this pin would fall into really narrows your market down. I mean, there just aren't that many people that are going to be willing to pay what this pin is worth. So I'll still make a lot of these because these are very popular. People love these. Great pin, no question about it. But this guys, this is in a whole new class of pin. Absolutely amazing.